last value is 6, right? Okay, so what if I do another 2? What's it going to display? Still goodbye.
Oh, some of them. Because if any of the matrix is true, it means the whole thing is true.
That's right. Or the whole thing is false. If any of the matrix is false, the whole thing's false.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's make that so all of them are true, and it displays hello world. So in an if statement, if you pass in an if statement into, or pass in a matrix into your if statement, it's going to check. If all of them are true, the if statement's true. If any of them are false, the if statement's false.
So if you wanted to check each one individually, you'd have to say like, you'd have to do like a loop and say check this index or something.
Yep. Yeah, so good question. Let's say I want to do this individually for each one. What do I do? Sorry? A thought?
Set dot.
Oh, a dot. A dot. Okay. All right, good thought, because dot multiply tends to do every single one. The dot tends to make it do every single one. One way to do it is I use a for loop. For x equals I. Within my for loop, actually, let's do this. I use my for loop right here. For x equals I. Now, in my for loop, I compare x instead of I. So what the for loop does is it goes through and says for every time I have, or for every value that's in I want to run this code, and that value, that value is assigned to x. So it's going to compare x and see if x is less than 5, and if it is, then it says hello world. So now I have hello world, goodbye, and hello world. So hello world, goodbye, and hello world. Any questions on that? You want me to go through that again?
I don't think so.
Is there a simpler way to do this, or is this like like, is there a way to do it without a loop?
Without doing a loop. Not that I'm aware of. Okay. Matrix multiply. I have a matrix. Let's see if I do this. No. I guess I've already done that. Actually, you know what? That might be it. Any questions on anything? While loops. Do you want me to go through while loops?
That would be great.
Let's do while loops. Okay, how does a while loop work?
It's a while loop is kind of doesn't have bounds to it like a for loop does.
You're right.
So it can go pretty much infinite. So if it's a certain condition, you pass it to the while loop.
That is correct. Okay, so the difference between a for loop and a while loop is a for loop has bounds from the beginning. You know how many times it's going to go through the loop from the beginning. Just starts at the beginning of a vector and goes to the end of the vector. A while loop, you do not know how many times it's going to go through. It could go through 0 times, it could go through infinite number of times, and everything in between. So you do not know how many times it's going to go through. The while loop is instead based off of a condition. So if I have x equaling 7, I can say while x is less than 10. And that's my condition for the while loop. I don't have to count up. I can set x to be something else based off of any. It can change every time you go through the loop. It can change to be some completely different value. I can set x to equal x divided by 2. So now every time it goes through the loop, it just divides by 2. Is it ever going to end the loop in this case? No, it will never end the loop. It's going to be an infinite loop because when I'm taking x and dividing by 2, it's never going to be greater than 10, greater than or equal to 10. It's always going to be less than 10, therefore it's going to be an infinite loop. Not exactly an elegant loop, but it works. So let's say this, while x is greater than 0.01. Now is it going to end? Yes. How many times is it going to go through the loop? I don't know.
X is bounded at 7, so it's going to be constant, isn't it?
X starts at 7, but it doesn't stay at 7.
Maybe a while.
Every time I go through the loop, it's going to change. It's going to cut in half. So first time through, it's going to be second. Second time through, it's going to be 3.5. Third time through, it's going to be, what, 1.75? Something like that. Third time through, it's going to be 0.875. Thank you. Okay. So we'll eventually get to 1/2 or less than 1/2, but we don't know. So I can just say display x. Let's do this. Display x. And it runs through 3.5, 1.75, 8.7 or 0.875, 0.3, 0.1, 0.5, 0.2, 0.01,
Doesn't-
0.006.
Doesn't it display x already since you don't have semicolon after x equals x divided by 2?
It will, you're right. So if I put the semicolon there now, it's just doing the display. So yes. Now I can say if x is less than 0.2, then, oops, can't even see here. Then I'm going to say x equals x plus, or let's see, yeah, x plus times 1.05 or 1.5.
Goodness.
Now is it going to work? Let's do 1.3 actually, or 1.2. Okay. Now is it going to end? It will eventually end. Going to keep times it by 1.2, and then divide by 2. It's going to start flipping back and forth. I don't think it'll eventually. I don't think it'll end. Huh? Don't hit run. Exactly. I do not think it'll end. I don't know. But the point is that you can have x change based off of the condition, and so your while loop, you don't know when you're going to end. And that's kind of the purpose of a while loop. It's also used when you're dealing with inputs into the system to reprompt the user. If they type in something bad, then you can request the user to type something in. You don't know how many times they're going to type in something bad, so you just have a while loop. A common thing people do is while one. What is that? While true, meaning it's an infinite loop. Okay? Why do people use infinite loops?
Ruin your computer.
To ruin your computer. To make your computer spin. Everybody hear of Bitcoin mining? It is a while loop because it's constantly running. It doesn't end unless you explicitly tell it to. But Bitcoin mining is mathematical equations that are constantly running. Okay, so you have a while one. Means an infinite loop. Oftentimes when people do this, the reason is because their condition for ending is actually inside the loop. It's not part of the loop condition itself. So they do a while one, and then within the loop, they use some condition to find out when to get out of the loop. What do you do when you want to get out of the loop?
Break.
You use break. Purpose of break is to break out of the loop regardless of where you're at. It ends the loop, goes to the next line, we're done. A complement to that is continue. I'm almost done. Is continue. What's the purpose of continue? Okay, it's to go back to the beginning of the loop and start over again. It just ends. It doesn't execute anything after that. It just goes right back to the beginning. Okay, that's it. I will see you on Wednesday with the test. Good luck. And yeah.